The Army has changed its mind about submitting its own bid on the replacement it's buying for the Bradley Infantry Fighting Vehicle. It's tried a couple of different approaches to getting a new solution to warfighters. General Carter Ham, U.S. Army retired, is president and CEO of the Association of the U.S. Army. Carter, it's good to see you again. Before we talk about the Bradley, your big event every year is going virtual this year. I'm disappointed that I won't see you at the convention center next month, but what will AUSA look like this year?
Well, thanks, Francis. It's good to see you as well, though virtually. Yes, the COVID-19 has changed all of our lives in lots of different ways. And one of the ways it has affected us here at the Association of the United States Army is that we aren't able to gather at the convention center as we have in past years, where last year more than 33,000 people came. So this year we're doing AUSA Now, a virtual platform, beginning on October 13th, continuing through October 16th. We'll still have many of the same programs. Secretary of Defense will speak, the Secretary of the Army will speak, the Chief of Staff, of course, the Sergeant Major of the Army, and many other panels on professional subjects. So the format will seem very familiar to people who have attended before. We'll still have an exhibit hall. It will be virtual rather than in person, but we're very confident that will work out quite well. What I'm excited about, Francis, is that, well, I'm disappointed about the in-person aspects that we will miss this year. This affords us an opportunity to extend the Army, extend AUSA to people and communities who otherwise would not participate in the AUSA annual meeting. So it's pretty exciting.
And that's the piece of this, General, that I think is the most interesting, is the potential for those elements to continue. Let's say AUSA goes completely back to normal in its in-person elements in 2021. I imagine there are pieces of this that we can expect to continue for your event and other events all across the spectrum.
There's no question about that, Francis. We've learned a lot over these last 6+ months of operating virtually and the ability, again, to extend our programming more widely. So yes, even when we do go back to in-person events, we're going to capitalize on what we have learned in the virtual space and combine the best of in-person and virtual events, which we think will best support the Army and best support our members and industry partners as we move forward.
To go back to what I teased folks with at the beginning of our conversation, Carter, the Army is deciding it's not going to submit its own bid on the Bradley. What does this mean to you, and what does this say more broadly about the needs of the military, particularly the Army, saying this is what we want to be able to do this thing, versus citing requirements where there's a long list of things that a particular piece of hardware has to do?
Well, as you and all who follow this business are keenly aware, the Bradley replacement process has been somewhat problematic for the Army. And so as they were looking for options and you know, how do we get what we need for the future, one of the considerations was for the Army essentially to do the design in-house. After some thought and consideration and deliberation, they decided against that course of action. For me personally, I think that's the right course of action. General Mike Murray at Army Futures Command and other senior Army leaders have spoken frequently over the past couple of years and recognize that real innovation, real change resides in the great defense industrial base of the nation, and including non-traditional defense business as well. That's where innovation is really going to come with. So I think this was a wise decision on the part of the Army to seek partnering with industry, again, perhaps non-traditional industries, to find the best solution for this very important component of building Army capability for the future.
What level do you see, and would you like to see those decisions being made? At the chief level, at the PEO level? Where in the chain is it appropriate for somebody to decide we should be involved, we should make a bid, we should let industry do this?
Well, I think it depends largely on the nature of the program, the scale, the scope. I mean, how impactful is this? How key is this to building future capabilities? What's the cost, frankly? You know, where's the dollar threshold? And I think that will lead to a decision as to where the appropriate authority is. You know, not everything can or should go to the Chief of Staff and the Secretary of the Army. You know, they, like everyone else, you know, they have limited time, energy, and bandwidth. And so we want those most senior leaders focusing on the most impactful decisions. I think this is, to me, this is the beauty of Army Futures Command, that you now have a four-star commander kind of charged with holistically looking at the future requirements of the Army, and in collaboration with the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Acquisition, Logistics, and Technology, working very closely with the program executive officers and others. I think there's a process to make the right decision on what level of the Army should appropriate decisions be made.
General, I will look forward to seeing you virtually next month for AUSA this year. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks, Francis. I look forward to seeing you in person when we can do that again, as we all hope will be very soon.